Adam, why do you hate this team so much? You had the lowest overall grade and the lowest depth. The overall depth, your average depth grade that you gave out was 5.5.
Okay. I am the oldest member of the Vikings territory team, and it is a mathematical proven fact that the more, or at least I think I am. How old are you, Sean?
30.
Okay, I'm the oldest member of the Vikings territory team, and it's mathematical. There's a graph out there somewhere, I think it's in the Bible, that shows that your level of cynicism goes way up the older you get if you're a Vikings fan.
Yeah. That's
or in life.
Because mine's pretty much off the charts. And mine's pretty much off. My cynicism is pretty much off the charts, and I'm only 30, so I can't imagine what yours is at 50. You look pretty damn good for 52, by the way. It's impressive,
Thanks.
man.
Working out.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 14 of the Vikings Territory Roundtable. My name is Brett Anderson, and I'm joined by a gang of Vikings gurus tonight. We got BJ Reidell over there on the bottom left, Adam Warwas up on the upper right, and welcome into the VT Roundtable for the first time ever, our newest team member, Sean Borman. Sean, go ahead and wave to the people. A little side note, Sean is actually the permanent replacement for Sam Newman at the Roundtable. Unfortunately, since the last episode, Sam said some unsavory things on Twitter, and the HR department of VT thought it was termination worthy, so we have a replacement for Sam, and we're excited that it's Sean. So, Sean, since this is your first time, why don't you, real quick, just tell the viewers a little something about yourself.
Minnesota, born and raised. Out of Bloomington, Minnesota here. Big golfer as well as Vikings fan. And I interned with the team in training camp down in Mankato. And long story short, I now have a nickname. I picked up a jug in the corner of a player's room, and it was Ian Johnson's room. Long story short, my nickname is Piss Jug now.
Nice. Okay.
I want to hear.
I don't know if we can share that, but
That's too late. It's been shared.
That's the perfect opener.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we're happy to have you, man. Since this is your first episode, I thought, we'd kind of catch people up on where you stand on some of the things we had talked about in previous episodes. So I'm going to hit you with a gauntlet of questions really quick. Real short answers, okay? Just kind of first thing that comes to your mind. And that should get everyone up to speed on kind of who you are and where you stand on some of these items. So first thing, boneless wings versus bone-in wings. This is important. Do you understand the
boneless.
question? Boneless? Did you say boneless?
Is that what you asked?
Boneless versus bone-in.
Boneless.
Boneless wings.
That's what's up.
Okay, that's
Man knows what's
disappointing.
up.
That's disappointing. If there were more of us, I might boot you from the table for answering that way.
You're outnumbered tonight, Brett.
I know. All right, your favorite Viking of all time?
Chris Carter.
Okay, it's a respectable
Keeping
answer.
it simple, yeah.
Yep.
Do you think Laquan Treadwell will be a bust? Yes or no?
No.
Okay, there we go. Favorite movie?
The Departed.
That's a good pick.
These are all really good answers so far. I'm impressed.
Yeah, very well-rounded character we got here.
Favorite television series?
I'm a big Simpsons Family Guy, I guess.
Family Guy?
I'll go Family Guy.
Okay. I never really got into Family Guy. I mean, all the clips that you always see online always look really funny, but
it's unreal.
I've never really watched it.
It's the type of humor where you either love it or you hate it. It's definitely fun.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I love it.
I do too.
I'm outnumbered again. It's not that I don't love it. I just never really watched it. All right. There's a well-known fullback who played with the Vikings from 2006 to 2010. His name as you may know, was Nafahu Tahi. Spell his name, Sean.
His last name?
Nope. The full thing, man. Come on.
Oh, man. I'm going to butcher it. N-A-U-F-A-U-I?
You were so close, man.
U.
H-U, I think.
H-U at the end there. You were so close, though. And we'll just give you the last name. I'm sure you know how to spell Tahi.
Oh, yeah.
But that, we threw that in. We threw that one in there just to kind of throw you off a little bit and keep you on your toes for this thing. So, final question. This is probably the most important question. Are you Team Teddy or are you Team Sam? No playing both sides. You got to pick one of them. Got to give me a straight answer.
You're allowed to sit on the fence, Sean.
No, you're not. No, you're not.
You are.
My question. No fence.
I would
sitting.
love to sit on the fence right now, but I'll go against the grain here. I'm a Sam guy.
Brett's face.
Well, good episode, guys.
I feel like the lone wolf now, man. Like,
You're not. I mean, I'm Teddy. I think Warwas is Teddy, too, for the most part. I mean, he sits on his fence, but...
no, Adam's like a always on the fence type of guy. He doesn't pick a side.
Adam would just want to talk about tight ends.
That reminds me, we got some T-shirts that are going to be coming out soon at Vikings territory, so you can pick a side officially on your T-shirt. It's going to be Team Gloves versus Team Sleeves. Stay on the lookout for that. They're pretty cool. We'll maybe by the next episode they'll be done, and we can go ahead and link them. But anyway, all right. Well, thanks Sean for doing that. Appreciate it, man. We're going to go ahead and get started with OTAs. So the Vikings just held their 5th OTA of the offseason. There hasn't been a ton of big news, which is probably a good thing, outside of some rookies getting their contracts wrapped up. However, I just want to spend a brief moment on what you guys think the biggest takeaways have been so far, the biggest notes from OTAs. I mean, maybe not necessarily a takeaway. It's hard to have takeaways from 5 OTAs, but what have been the most interesting stories that you guys, or you know, storylines out of OTAs so far that have intrigued you the most? Let's start with Sean, new guy.
You know, Brett, I was looking at that today. I saw some interesting info on Chris Thomason's Twitter feed. You know, Nick Easton playing with the first team at center, with Elflein as the backup. Berger obviously playing right guard. I thought that was kind of interesting to not see Elflein as the first team center. TJ Clemmings at right guard. I think as well as Edmund Robinson playing in Greenway's old spot. So
yeah,
a few different things to look at.
So do you think, and anyone can answer this, I mean, when I hear Nick Easton over Elflein, I kind of think don't read into it too much. And I guess that's probably a general note on OTAs overall, because I feel like it'd be a bigger statement to have Elflein starting over Easton, you know, right out of the gate, as Easton being the guy that's been there previously. He's the vet. I don't know. Do you guys agree with that, or?
Yeah, the incumbent generally has first dibs, and then it's kind of his job to lose. And even though Pat Elflein might be the center of the future, he's still got to earn it. Yeah. And we know that Mike Zimmer's all about the rookies earning their position. So yeah, why wouldn't they have Easton, a guy that started a couple games last year, not necessarily well, but it's his job to lose at this point. So I wouldn't read too much into it, but I would just notice that, again, it's better superiority when we're talking with Mike Zimmer here, even though Mike Zimmer's not there.
Yeah. Speaking of Mike Zimmer, we talked a lot about that last episode. I thought we should note really quick that that he put out a line a few days ago, beginning of the week or something like that, or maybe it was last week, because it was around when Drew was questioning whether his career was basically going to be over as a result of this eye thing. I had the freaking quote. Oh, there it is. So he said, 1 eye or 2, I'll be back. So I mean, kind of put to bed the whole, is this thing going to be career ending for him? And that's kind of what I was saying last episode too. I mean, even if he only has one eye, worst case scenario, I think he could probably still get by with Mike Zimmer. And he's not the type of guy, I think, that's going to check himself out of the situation if there's any chance that he can still do it. So I think that was good to hear. What about you, Adam? What storylines have been interesting to you so far? Anything that Sean didn't hit?
Well, I think every year we look back at why we failed the previous year, and usually there's some sort of dumpster fire on the roster that we point at, and then we're all so excited to watch that position and the new players at that position in the OTAs and training camp the next season. This year is a little different. I think that dumpster fire was our injured reserve, and so really I think the biggest story is anything that's health related that is good news or bad news, and really we haven't had any bad news other than Coach Zimmer. Knock on a huge piece of wood right now saying that, but there hasn't been any additional injuries, and there hasn't been any setbacks that we know of with the players that are hurt. I saw Latavius Murray make a statement earlier today about, he's not going to rush it. The team has the depth to cover for him if he does have to be absent, but he's going to trust the process. And some of these injuries were just so devastating last year that it's nice to see that everybody across the board seems to be progressing the way that they're supposed to be, other than Coach Zimmer and Sharif Floyd, who, we knew about it before it started, that there's not real high hopes on that front. But to me, that's the biggest thing to keep an eye on is how busy Eric Sugarman is.
You got some sort of balls saying something like that on this show, man. Come on. Like, don't even put that evil out there, Adam. Like, what are you doing, man?
No, I'm superstitious, so I hate to say it, but okay, so health is the biggest storyline, regardless of if we're getting hurt or not. But I mean that's the thing I'm checking in for every day. And
I know. Today was like a lot of. Sorry, Adam. Go ahead.
I was just going to say the rest of it to me is just a lot of noise. They're going to move players around. They do it every year, and we overreact to it every year. And the official Twitter feed is going to send out little clips of Stephon Diggs burning everybody like he has every year since he's been in the league during OTAs. And I guess I don't get too excited one way or the other about that news, but the health thing to me is the top storyline. It's not the most fun storyline, but it's the top storyline for this.
It's probably the only one that really matters coming out. I mean, I don't want to say really matters because it all matters, I guess, to some degree, but it definitely matters the most.
Well, I think there's certain aspects to the roster makeup that can be decided now. I think Kai Forbath, from everything I've heard, is going to nail down that roster spot. Not that there was a whole lot of doubt, but they did bring in some competition, and I think that's already progressed to the point where we can call that race. And there's a few others that maybe are going to be more interesting than we thought they were going to be, but we'll see on the position battles. I think it's really early to start talking too heavily about it.
Yeah. The team keeps releasing these clips, and there was a ton today of Teddy. And in the past, they've always gotten me really excited. But today, when I was watching these clips where he was seemed to be a little bit more active and he was moving sideways and stuff, this was the first time that I actually felt fear. I don't know if any of you guys get that when you watch it, but I was thinking about the fact the first time he got hurt, he was just dropping back, and now he's dropping back and moving side to side, and I'm just almost cringing watching it just because, I care about the guy so much. I'm just I don't know, man. But anyway, what about you, BJ?
Writer Sam Newman might say that you're a little too invested.
Yeah, well, that's why he's not here anymore. Sean would never say something like that to me. Anyway, BJ, what you got, man?
I like Mike Zimmer talking about Mackenzie Alexander maturing as a man, because I thought that was the biggest thing that he needed to do this offseason was just come back a little bit more mature, a little less cocky, less arrogant, and just kind of zone in on that spot that it looks like it's kind of his for the takings at the slot corner spot. So that was important to me. I liked seeing that. But like you said, Brett, most of the stuff doesn't matter at all. The two biggest things are obviously, like Adam said, the health thing. And then also I think it's important that there's a high participation rate at OTA. It's a good chemistry builder. It's important for all the players to be there and, working together towards the goal that they set up on their pegboard, whatever that may be. And I just think it's good for, to have good participation, good health, and just have everyone kind of starting early in terms of getting their goals specified and how to reach them as soon as possible.
Yeah, for sure. A couple things I wrote down that sorry, go ahead, Adam.
One other thing, Sean's been on top of it with the news items on Vikings territory, but the Vikings have signed Dalvin Cook. I don't think we have a story up on that yet. It just happened prior to this recording. But the Vikings are signing their rookies, so all that drama that came out about this language that's in their contracts and can the contracts be voided and whatnot, it turned out to be much ado about nothing as the union preparing for the CBA. I've mentioned it on here before, but they're posturing for the coming battle in a couple years over the new CBA. And that is one storyline worth noting. They're not having any troubles getting their rookies under contract.
Yep, definitely. All right, a couple things that I wrote that I'm kind of surprised nobody brought up. One, well, I mean, I guess I'm not surprised no one brought this up, but Diggs is looking incredible, as expected. So I think if this guy can stay healthy, I mean, potential number one receiver easily, could easily have a 1,000-yard season. Did you guys see that video clip of him burning Newman? Putting the double, or it was like a double or triple move on Newman, and they played it in slow-mo. I mean, that was just disgusting and got me super pumped. No one talked about Treadwell, and I feel like I put some feelers out there on Twitter, and everyone was talking about, Treadwell's looked promising. So let's just do this really quick. There's been a lot of Treadwell hype coming out of OTAs. Going around the table really quick, are you buying or selling the Treadwell hype? Adam. Don't walk the fence.
I was never down on him to begin with.
Okay, buying. Sean, you buying or selling?
Buying.
Go ahead, BJ. Be the contrarian.
I'm selling. Yeah.
Yeah, figure.
I don't think I think he's going to be a good player. I'm just not buying the hype that he's getting right now. And I still don't think that, by the time we get to the meat of the season and the roster is kind of established and we know who's the starter everywhere, I don't think he'll be one of the top 3 receivers. So,
and important to note that you may have a slight bias. As you're the president of the Michael Floyd fan club, much like I'm the president of the Teddy Bridgewater fan club.
I might be, yeah. So that's fine.
Speaking of Floyd, a different Floyd. Damn, I'm getting good at these segues, man. That was smooth right there. Sharif Floyd. You gotta
say it. It's not a good segue. I
have to say it because it's I'm still learning at this, so it's impressive. Sharif Floyd. There was an article that came out about Sharif Floyd. Still hasn't practiced yet, and in fact, he hasn't even resumed running. However, Ben Gosling at ESPN had a interview with him, asked about if he was optimistic about coming back or if he would be back for the regular season. He said it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So we'll talk about the DT position a little bit later in the episode, but I don't know. I mean, do you guys kind of take that? Does that mean anything to you? Does him saying that really hold any meaning, you think, or anyone?
I think Sharif Floyd coming back mid-season would be bonus points for this team.
Well, I know, but I mean, like, does him saying that make you feel any more confident about the situation? I mean, I feel like we've been hearing positive comments regarding Floyd's status for the past, 9 months or so.
I would say yes. Yeah, because I feel like guys that when they know their career is over, they kind of go into a major funk, like a huge downward spiral, and that's when you see a lot of guys, their careers end and all of a sudden they're hooked on painkillers or whatever. I think it affects them mentally when they truly believe their career is over. So for Sharif Floyd to kind of stay optimistic, and not only optimistic, but kind of, cocky or forthcoming about the idea of getting back at some point, I think that says a lot about his psyche and where he's at. So I think that's important. And I would say, that it probably does say something about him actually returning at some point. Hopefully this season, like that, so would be a huge part of what's becoming a pretty solid defensive tackle group at this point.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, well let's. Why are you laughing?
Just your response. Yeah, no, okay.
No, I agree with you. I don't know. I guess maybe I'm just a little jaded. I guess on that front. You know, I don't know. Seems like we've been talking about it a while, and I'm just starting to doubt whether it's he's ever actually going to be back. So
He had that tweet that came out a few months ago. That he was basically praying to God that he was able to come back at some point.
Yeah.
And so I was a little off-put by that tweet. That made it seem like things were not going too well. And I understand what you're saying now, BJ, that he's feeling a little more optimistic and a little more cocky about coming back. And maybe that is a good thing. But like you said, Brett, I still don't know what to think on the whole situation.
Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit more about Floyd as we continue through this episode. So we're going to go ahead and jump into the defensive grades and depth grades. Last week, we did the offensive grades and depth grades. So if you didn't get a chance to see that, go back and watch episode 13. So basically what we're going to do, we're running down position by position. We're going to go through our grades because the VT team as a whole graded each position, provided an overall grade, and then also provided a grade for the depth at the position. So we're just going to go and talk about that, talk about some of the talking points at each position, and go from there. So we're going to start probably at the best position on defense, at least by our grades. Defensive end, we gave defensive end an overall grade of 9.86. That's out of 10, so that's stellar. We gave it an average depth grade of 9.14. So I'm just going to run through the depth chart really quick, and I guess that it's important to say that's a really good depth grade as well, out of 10. So we got Everson Griffin, Danielle Hunter, Brian Robeson, Stephen Weatherly, Caleb Kidder. This damn name, man. I practiced it last time. I didn't practice it this time. Ifeadi Odenigbo? Ifeadi Odenigbo. Got it. Sam McCaskill. Yeah. I said it right.
I.O.
We're going to call him I.O., yeah. Sam McCaskill and Tashawn Bauer. So the unit got 10s across the board. It was our highest graded position overall and for depth on defense. Except one guy gave this position a 9 for an overall grade and a 9 for depth. Sean, why do you hate the Vikings defensive end so much?
I was a pretty tough grader, I guess, overall.
Yeah.
Do I feel Everson Griffin is the best defensive end in the league? I don't. That's why I did not give the position a 10. I think Danielle Hunter moving up into the starting role helps the position.
Yeah.
But I didn't feel that they deserved a 10.
Yeah, and he has been, we should know, he has been getting, sounds like first-team reps at OTAs at defensive end over Robeson. So I don't know, you bring up a good point talking about the best defensive end in the NFL. Do you guys think as a unit we can say that this is the best defensive end unit in the NFL? No?
I don't think they were last year, but I think they have the potential to be next year.
Yeah.
I would say that. I would agree with that too.
Anyone?
It's tough too because we have a 4-3 alignment, right? So the defensive end, we should only be comparing the defensive end duo to other 4-3 schemes.
Sure.
If you compare it to a 3-4 scheme, technically Von Miller would be a 4-3 defensive end. So you start looking at how Denver would look if they were lined in a 4-3 scheme. They'd probably be stronger than us. Same with Seattle. Seattle in their 4-3 scheme actually already is probably. It goes to be, as a full unit, there are teams that have 3 guys that are better than our 3 guys, I think, from an average standpoint. But it's terms of like a duo that can really do major damage, that could be top 5 sack duos in the league. I think Everson Griffin and Danielle Hunter have a real chance to do that. But again, it's that scheme switch that trying to make that comparison, it just doesn't really work.
Yeah,
I think for me, the overall grade, the depth grade plays into that, and we're just so deep at that position, and we have the ability to move guys around like Brian Robinson and
Tom Jones too.
Even Anthony Barr if need be.
Yeah.
But I think the overall talent of that unit is 4 or 5 guys deep. That's pretty stellar, even if one of them isn't the best in the NFL. But even that, I think one of them has the potential to be the best in the NFL this next season. Absolutely. I don't see anything holding back either Hunter or Griffin from staking that claim after 16 games.
If you had to give odds to one of those two guys to being the best in the NFL, would you favor Hunter or would you favor Griffin?
What's best in the NFL? Do you mean like in terms
Best
of
defensive end in
total
the
value?
NFL, best defensive. Let's say most sacks, I guess, because that's pretty much how we typically.
Most
measure
sacks, I
defense.
think you have to lean Hunter, but better overall defensive end in terms of setting the edge against the run and really, tackles for loss, just making big plays like that. I think that because Griffin's a veteran, he's the more well-rounded player. But in terms of impact guy that can really be a difference maker and, getting a sack in the end zone against Cam Newton to change the fortunes of that game last year, for example, I think you have to lean Danielle Hunter there.
Yeah,
But
it's crazy.
better
Like,
player's got to be defensive end. Everson Griffin.
like I saw a stat the other day, and I think I knew this, but I hadn't heard it in a while. So like when I saw it, it was almost like I was seeing it for the first time. Danielle Hunter was 3rd in sacks last year,
Yeah.
which is just crazy. I mean, I think it was maybe a down year for sacks, because I think the most was like 13 or something like that. I don't know. I could be wrong, and I think
You wouldn't know that watching the Vikings though.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just like
Their offensive line
from an
that much.
individual standpoint, like I said, I think the most was 13. But it's crazy. Like Hunter had 10, 3rd best in the NFL, wasn't even in a full-time role. So I think if I had to pick one of those guys to have the most sacks, I'd agree. I think it's probably Hunter. So one.
I think Griffin gets a slight advantage because of the talent playing behind him at the second level. I mean, most often Barr is going to be lined up on the side of that. There's a talent gap between Barr and whoever we end up putting in Greenway's spot on the weeks.
That's a good point.
Hunter may not have that luxury of absolutely trusting the guy behind him like Griffin can.
So someone mentioned depth, and when I was putting the show notes together, I was kind of looking at each of our grades. The average depth grade for defensive end was our highest out of any position. But is this position actually deep? Like I went back and I was looking at it, and I graded it like it was deep, but then I was kind of looking at it again. I mean, if you're talking strictly defensive end, you're talking Griffin, Hunter, and Robeson. And after that, it seems like there's a pretty big fall off from there. So, when you guys did the depth grade, were you including Dayton Jones in that, and were you including Anthony Barr kind of as an edge rusher in that?
Tone Jones, I did, but not Anthony Barr.
Okay.
Same.
I think 4 deep is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
You don't expect that. You don't expect 2 guys to go down. I mean, it could happen, but you would expect that you're going to have, even if Hunter or Griffin goes down, you still have Robinson. That's pretty great depth. That's giving you a very quality player at the position. And then Dayton Jones is your super backup. That's also very good. And then, I'm not personally high on Stephen Weatherly, but there are people who still believe in him and be a high upside player. So I think that when you have that type of depth and that ability to move guys around, I think that's certainly worth the 10 for me at least.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
if we were playing in a more rigid defense like in the Childress year, I don't know that I would consider the depth to be that good, but because of we're playing in Mike Zimmer's scheme where he can move guys around and play chess a little bit and put players where he wants them, I think defensive end is as deep as a position that we're going to see on that defense right now.
Because they can move into like a 34 alignment too. You've seen Zimmer use like the drop linebacker and use Anthony Barr, for example, has kind of put his hand in the dirt. You can do that to Tone Jones too, and just the ability to move guys around and kick Brian Robinson into a 5 and have him be the 3-4 defensive end. You can do that with Everson Griffin as well, and then have Danielle Hunter stand up. There's just so many things you can do that because of the versatility that they've collected. I think it's definitely one of the deepest groups in the league.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying, Brett, and I agree. But I just don't think Zimmer is lacks
Yeah.
the creativity.
No, I think what you guys are saying is fair. I think I just saw it, and they are far and away graded as our deepest position according to this exercise. Like, they're in the 9s, and there's not even another position in the 8s, or there's one in the high 7s. So, I mean, like, there's a pretty significant gap between the depth at this position according to our grades and the other positions. So let's move along the defensive line to nose tackle. This one also had a very high overall grade at 9.43, and the average depth grade was 7.10. Running through the depth chart really quick: Linval Joseph, Shamar Stephen, and Will Sutton at the nose tackle position. I think the biggest talker here probably is the lack of depth at the position. There seems to be a pretty significant fall after the number one guy, maybe more so than any other position. I don't know. Would you guys agree with that, or because you got behind Linval, you got Shamar Stephen. Sorry, I didn't go to anyone in specific. I don't know. Sean, would you agree with that?
I would agree there's a big drop off. I guess it might be the biggest drop off of any defensive position now that you mention it, but Shamar Stephen has played and he showed he can play, he can fill in and be okay, but not exactly an impact player as a
Right.
fill-in.
Yeah, I mean,
So
I think we all pretty much agreed that we're good at the position because of Linval, but we all graded the depth pretty low. It was pretty much 6 or 7s across the board. Adam, I don't know if this was a mistake or not, but you gave. Was it a mistake? Because I feel like did you just go back and edit it?
I saw that there was a 9.7, and I did
Sorry.
not get that detailed with my grading. So I think that was a week ago we did this. I think I intended to put a 7 in, but
Okay,
I think
so
the
that's-
addition of Will.
So our depth just dropped to 6.71. We got real-time grades going here. Yeah, I mean, I looked at that and I was like, I saw the 6 or 7s, then I saw you gave it a 9, and I was like, I was definitely going to come to you to have you explain yourself there.
Yeah, I gave it a 9.7 by accident. I think I fat-fingered that one. But no, I think the addition of Will Sutton to compete with Shamar is huge. I think that was going to end up being a very underrated offseason move for this team. And at the very least, there's some competition there, and hopefully they elevate each other. The depth. If Linval went down, it doesn't really matter who's behind him. That's going to suck. We've seen that in the past, and hope that doesn't happen again in the future. That guy's a beast, and he quite possibly is the best in the NFL at what he does. I'm anxious to see that competition for the spot behind Linval take place in training camp and see how it shakes out. I'm not real panicky about the depth there right now, but certainly willing to acknowledge it could be better.
Because
I
there's
think the depth has a lot of potential. That the group that's in there has a lot more potential than it does kind of what we already know. The unknown is what dropped the grade for me. Like, DeTone Jones could be a really, really good 3 technique in a rotation role. Same with Jaleel Johnson. He could be a really good nose or a really good 3 tech. And Tom Johnson seems like he's healthy, which is pretty unbelievable considering that he was hurt the hamstring at the end of last year and he's coming back 100%. So that's a pretty solid 3-man rotation, even if Sharif Floyd doesn't return. The question mark then is who plays behind Linval Joseph. And I think, like Warwas said, Will Sutton that's a really nice signing because I think he makes a lot more sense in a 4-3 scheme. And he just was he didn't make sense in Chicago. It's the same type of deal with when Jared Allen got flipped in that 3-4 scheme when Vic Fangio showed up. He wanted out immediately just because he's a 4-3 defensive end, and that's why he got shipped to Carolina. It's kind of the same deal with Will Sutton. He just wasn't a 3-4, defensive end or nose tackle in that scheme. So it just makes more sense for him when he comes over here. And I think that he'll be a better backup than Shamar Stephen. So what I'm ramping up to is that this grade for me, I think I gave like a 7 or something like that. It could easily be like a 9 if Jaleel Johnson comes in and has an impact role. Tom Johnson gives us one more great year before he kind of falls off. And I think that DeTone Jones has the potential. We just don't know because he's been playing in the wrong scheme the last 40 years. He's
So-
potential to come in and be a really big impact guy as well.
So, BJ, just to be clear, we were getting ready to move on to defensive tackle, but you're kind of talking about some of the guys that we have slotted at defensive tackle when we were talking about nose tackle.
I thought we were talking.
No, I did separate them, but I was wondering if you were doing that on purpose, because were you suggesting that maybe those guys have some flexibility and maybe that impacted your grade when you were looking at the nose tackle spot?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I would say that a lot of those guys have some flexibility. Shamar Stephen's really the only one that doesn't have flexibility, to be quite honest with you.
You think so you can see Dayton Jones playing at the one tech spot?
It wouldn't be a good fit, but yeah, he could.
Okay.
He's played 3-4 end, and that's a 5-eye, so yeah, I would expect. He's been playing 3-4 end and 3-4 linebacker, so I would expect that, yeah, he probably can't slide in at the nose. It's not a great idea, but you could beef him up, and it would make more sense than when he was running in Green Bay, in my opinion.
Yeah, okay.
I think what it boils down to is we lack depth at big fat run stuffers.
Yes, that's true. I would agree with that for sure.
The ham in the middle of that defensive line, once the ball goes away, is mighty suspect. But on passing downs, on nickel downs and whatnot, we have tons of flexibility.
Right.
You can do all sorts of fun stuff. But yeah, I would agree that the run stuffing aspect, getting those real big fat guys in the middle of that defensive line, we don't have much to play with there.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's move on to defensive tackle. There was kind of some overlap there, so I'm just going to do this one quickly. We had the overall grade for defensive tackle at 7.71, and then the depth grade at 6.93. The depth chart is Tom Johnson, Jaleel Johnson, Dayton Jones, Dylan Bradley, and at the tail end there, Sharif Floyd. A lot of the talking points that I had kind of anticipated doing were based on the fact that Adam had, or that we had the nose tackle depth higher than the defensive tackle depth, but after Adam just updated his score, that all kind of undid itself. So I guess really all I'm interested in talking about now at this spot is how much does your score jump if Sharif Floyd is 100% healthy?
Quite a bit.
I mean, okay, so let me so 1 point, 2 points, 3 points, because right now we have
2 at least.
I would say across the board we pretty much have 8s for an overall grade at this position. Drew and Sean have 7s. Would you say it bumps to a 10 if Sharif Floyd is in that unit and 100%?
I have 8, but I would go to 9-10.
So you'd bump the depth up to 10.
10 on depth. Yeah.
Okay.
If Sharif Floyd is in that mix.
The depth score would be the biggest thing there. I'm not sure that the talent jump from a Tom Johnson to a Sharif Floyd, I don't think you can justify, at least with what we've seen so far, that there's that big of a gap.
That's fair.
Is it? I disagree with that, I guess.
That's fair.
Yeah.
You're allowed.
I think it's pretty fair.
I'll allow it.
Yeah.
I'll yield the floor to Mr. Anderson.
Well, I mean, I don't have anything insightful to really add, I guess. I think when Sharif Floyd is 100%, he's a game changer. I mean, I think he has the potential to be blue chip all-pro player. I mean, you look at some of those plays when he was 100% healthy and how quickly he gets off the ball, and it just seems unreal, like almost unfair, and maybe it's a penalty because he's so far, in front of everyone else when the ball's being snapped. So I don't know.
Yeah, but you're living in a fantasy land if you think he's going to come back in week 10 and play at an all-pro level after missing he's been off the field for like 3.5 years now or something stupid. I mean, he's not going to come back and just all of a sudden be the golden boy again.
Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. I like to remain optimistic. I don't know. But
yeah, in this point, I'd have to agree with you, Brett. I think the talent level from a Tom Johnson to a Sharif Floyd is at least worth 2 points, and he is that much more of an impact player than a Tom Johnson.
Yeah. Why can't you be more like Sean, Adam?
You're fired.
You need to try and be more like Sean.
Go sit with Sam.
Sean, he can't fire you. It's a 50-50 thing. Okay, I have to sign off on that. All right. moving on, linebacker. I'm kind of bummed. Like, I feel like the rest of this episode isn't as exciting because the positions aren't as good. Well, I mean, not the episode isn't as exciting, but just like the positions we're going to be talking about.
These are the two most fun positions for sure.
Everybody, tune out now because Brett just told you to.
I mean,
You want to get more hits on the YouTube channel, and you're just going to say that in the middle of it?
No. Well, people have probably already stopped watching by this point anyway, right? I mean,
well, if they haven't, they did now.
No, man, this is pure entertainment now. They're going to stay for the entertainment. No, I mean, but that was probably a poor choice of words. What I was saying was, like...
These are my two favorite positions.
Okay,
so
well, then you can talk about them more because to me, like, you know, the defensive line is incredible, and I could talk about the defensive line forever. Moving into linebacker, it's kind of like, you know, I don't know. There's some question marks there. So, average overall grade 7.57. Average overall depth is a flat 6. Depth chart: Anthony Barr, Eric Kendricks, Emmanuel Lamore, Edmund Robinson, Ben Gideon, Kentrell Brothers, Elijah Lee, Sean Washington, and Eric Wilson. Obviously, quite a few of those guys aren't going to be on the roster come regular season, but they're there now. So this is our second lowest graded position on defense. I don't know. Does it feel like to you guys? I mean, I know I just kind of bashed the position, but I feel like our overall grade is a little low. I mean, when you have Barr and Kendrick sitting at the top of it, I don't know. Are we just? You think people are just low on Barr right now, or because 7.57 just feels? I don't know.
I think 8. I think it should be around 8, which is what I gave it.
Yeah. So let's see who was the low here. I guess the lowest was a 7, so it just ended up. It was between 7 and 8, and it ended up leveling out about in the middle of it. But I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe I'm just assuming Anthony Barr bounces back and plays to the level we saw, you know, earlier on with his tenure. But I guess maybe it's fair right now, 7.57. The depth obviously is a 6, and after Eric Kendricks, there's a lot of question marks. Who do you think is going to fill the Greenway role right now? Who would be your bet? Go ahead, Adam.
Brothers with Kendrick sliding. BJ wrote a fantastic article about it a long time ago, and that's the way I see this playing out.
So you think
I'll take that too.
So you think that's it? What about you, Sean? Do you agree that Brothers is going to be the guy? Because it sounded like, I mean, I know, you know, don't read into OTAs, but Edmund Robinson sounded like he was getting most of those reps right now.
Yeah, and like you said, don't read too much into it, but I'm a big fan of Brothers. I think he showed a lot in special teams last year. Robinson is still a pretty good option. But yeah, I'm with you guys. I like Brothers.
All right, DJ, talk about the freaking position, man. Come on, because I'm kind of like I'm already ready to move on. So yeah, this is your favorite position.
I mean, it depends on what you do with Eric Kendricks, right? If you keep Eric Kendricks as your Mike linebacker, and we're talking in a 4-3 base alignment, right? Then you're looking at who's going to kick to the right of him. It's either going to be Robinson, Elijah Lee. I think should be a realistic dark horse, and I think that probably Ben Gideon is right behind him, and then Eric Wilson, I like him probably more than most people do. So you got that. But in your nickel, you've got Anthony Barr and Eric Kendricks straight up. That's great. Just if you're running at 62% of the time, that's a really good cast of linebackers. But when you kick into your base, that's when the question marks arise. And, I don't love Emmanuel Lamore. I didn't see anything from him last year that warrants bringing him back after this season. So I think he's kind of playing for his Vikings career right now. But I just think that this position could end up being very good because Elijah Lee has so much potential. I think that Ben Gideon kind of gets a bad rap. And if you kick Eric Kendricks out to the weak side, then you can move Kentrell Brothers into that stay-at-home linebacker role, like 20, 25 snaps primarily on run stuffing downs where you can use his instincts. You can also use Ben Gideon in that way. So I think your 4-3 looks a lot better if you kick Eric Kendricks out that will linebacker spot, but at the same time, a lot of people have talked about this. He's so good at playing the Mike spot that it's almost, it almost defeats the purpose to kick him somewhere else just to move someone else into, an optimal lineup situation. So it depends on what they decide to do with Eric Kendricks. But I think your optimal lineup is Kentrell Brothers at the Mike spot and Kendricks at the weak side, which, again, doesn't really matter unless it's specifically the in the outside the nickel spot, which is what they're going to be playing most of their defense out of anyways.
You think they're actually... Go ahead, Adam.
I think you touched on situational football, but again, back to Mike Zimmer's defense and the flexibility that's there. We saw it last year. I mean, you can put the player in there to try and counter what you think the offense is going to do as best as you can. And I can see Edmund Robinson, I can see Brian Robeson, I can see Lamour, I can see the Kendrick sliding over with Brothers in the middle, especially if you think it's going to be a running down situation. I see a lot of options there, and I don't think it's going to be one of those things where we come out of training camp knowing who the three guys are going to be, and that's it. I think we're going to know who the two guys are going to be, like BJ said, and that third guy is going to be a rotational piece that Mike Zimmer puts in the player that he thinks is best for that situation in that football game.
Yeah. Okay. BJ, anything else you want to talk about linebackers?
Oh, I think I got my 1 minute in there, right?
Yeah.
What do you think the odds are that Zimmer actually moves Kendricks to weak side?
I don't think they're good, honestly. I think that he's happy with him at the Mike spot, but he did have the one quote that leaves the hope, saying that he thinks that his skills translate best to that will linebacker spot. And I think that think about the best plays of Eric Kendricks' career, right? The one that I always go to is that for week 1 interception, 77-yard touchdown return against Tennessee. That is an example of a weak side linebacker using his instincts and zone coverage, just basically a play that he made for himself based on having the flexibility to do so. You don't have as much flexibility when you're slotted in my spot because you're really in control of that over-the-middle zone, where that's kind of where you want your thumper to be so that you don't get the slant coming at you and the 8-yard flats and stuff like that just kind of attack your middle of your field. You want a thumper there. That's why I think Kentrell Brothers makes sense there and Eric Kendricks makes sense on the outside. But at the same time, it's up to Mike Zimmer, and if Mike Zimmer wants to keep him at Mike's spot, then it really leaves, for me, it's a big hole because I don't know what Edmund Robinson can do. I don't have a ton of faith in Ben Gideon to be a great outside linebacker. I like him more as a Mike. And I just, Elijah Lee, I love him. I think he's a high upside player that's going to end up finding a way into the 53s here or somewhere else this year. But there's just too much unknown there to have any certainty about the position. That kind of reflects my grade, at least.
Yeah.
I think it is up to Mike Zimmer, but it's also up to those guys vying for that weak side spot.
That's a good point, too.
If one of them shows up, that's the best case scenario. You keep Kendricks home where Zimmer likes him to be in the middle of that defense, and you have some go-to guy at the weak side spot. But nothing up until this point since really Aaron Henderson's days did we know who was going to be.
Aaron Henderson, nice.
Greenway, yes, but let's face it, Greenway hasn't been great for quite some time, and I really think it's up to this competition to see if somebody emerges. If nobody emerges, then that rotation is gonna take place. I just about guarantee you. And I would say that Brian Robinson, in my mind, is a sneaky person to steal a lot of snaps at that position because Mike Zimmer really trusts veterans in his defense as opposed to younger guys. We see that a lot.
You just said Brian Robinson, right?
Yes.
Coming with the hot takes.
Oh, we saw quite a bit of it last year with Robinson.
Yeah, but no one mentioned that until the very end now, and I don't know. I know it's been done before, but it hadn't been mentioned until now by anyone. So
last year was kind of Robinson.
Hot take, Adam.
Last year was his first year, full multi-dimensional. It's not his first year. He's always been kicked into defensive tackle, but last year he played defensive tackle, defensive end, outside linebacker, and he admitted that there was a learning curve playing this rotational piece that bounced all over the place. And I thought he did really well despite Pro Football Focus's absurd grade of Brian Robinson's play. But if he can improve and take a leap in that new role at his age, he becomes very valuable. And I could see Zimmer just placing a lot more trust in him than in Edmund Robinson or a rookie.
I guess that's one of the things that makes doing these grades by position so hard in this defense. Is people wear so many different hats. So it's hard to kind of hone in and keep this narrow vision of who's in what position. All right, so cornerback. Let's move to the backfield. The average overall grade for cornerback was 8.93, so just on the cusp of being a 9. Overall depth grade 7.86. Our depth there was Xavier Rhodes, Trey Waynes, Terrence Newman, Mackenzie Alexander, Jabari Price, Trey Roberson, Marcus Sherrills, Terrell Sinkfield, and Horace Richardson. Obviously, overall, this is a very strong unit. Rhodes is obviously becoming one of the elite corners in the NFL. Trey Waynes is coming into his own, as we saw last season. The old
Rhodes is one of the elite in the NFL.
Okay, yeah. What did I say? He was becoming?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair enough.
He's
Yeah,
already there.
I'll take that back and revise it. Terrence Newman, old timers, coming back for another run. And then, if guys like Mackenzie Alexander can mature a little bit, like it looks like he might be, and develop, I think you're looking at a really, really good group. Looks like everyone on the VT team agrees. You think this is you think this could be the best cornerback group in the NFL if those 4 guys, I guess if Mackenzie Alexander takes the next step?
Yes. I think the biggest question marks would be Denver, because they have the threesome out there in Roby, Harris, and who's the one that I'm forgetting? Akeem Talib. I think that's the threesome to beat in terms of being the best overall group. I think Xavier Rhodes, Newman, and Trey Waynes gives it a run for its money, and it kind of you have to determine the overall potential based off Mackenzie Alexander's potential in the slot. Because if it's not Mackenzie Alexander in the slot, it's going to be Terrence Newman, and I'm nervous about that at his age because it takes so much lateral agility, and I think he's got the instincts, which is what Mackenzie Alexander kind of lacks. If you could basically put Mackenzie Alexander's athleticism with Terrence Newman's mind right now, I'd be very comfortable with that guy in the slot. Problem is that you can't just create your own player. This isn't Madden. So I think that this group will compete, especially in terms of outside cornerbacks. I think that Trey Waynes, Newman, and Rhodes is an outstanding cast of outside cornerbacks, and that's probably the best outside cornerback group in the league. It's just a question about that slot spot, especially when you play so much nickel.
Yeah,
I'm curious. You sound really confident in Trey Waynes, and I am too.
Me?
Yeah, what's your take on Trey Waynes?
I think this is a breakout year for him. And if you guys might not know this, but I hated the Trey Waynes pick. I'm team Marcus Peters forever. So I've been bashing Trey Waynes for just about if he peed the wrong way, I gave it to Trey Waynes over the last couple of years because I was not happy with that pick at all. But I do think that he really does have the opportunity to make the step forward this year. I think that we saw it with Rhodes, where the swags kind of starts to come out, and then all of a sudden he starts playing a little bit better. I think that Trey Waynes just needs to be a little bit more confident out there because he's got the physical skill set. It seems like he understands at least the outside routes. He does very well against the 9s, the 8s, and 7s, all those deep routes, because again, he has the makeup speed to do it. It's just a question on the quick slants and stuff like that, those 8-yard routes that really test his footwork. But other than that, I'm very confident in Trey Waynes. I think that this is the year that you need to take the training wheels off and see what you got.
Yeah, for sure. What about Terrence Newman? Sean, do you think Terrence Newman had an amazing season, all things considered, last year. Do you think we can expect the same thing out of him this year? You think there's going to be a drop-off, a significant drop-off, or?
That'll be an interesting thing to watch. He'll be 39 years old going into the season. That's a whole lot to ask for. And like BJ said, playing the slot with a lot of side-to-side movement. Can he do it at this age? And he's proven us wrong up to this point.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, because I feel like I was probably asking the same question last year.
When he signed, at least from my vantage point, I don't know how you guys felt when he signed, but I figured the Vikings were another coach, not an actual player that was going to contribute at an impact level. He was arguably the best number 2 cornerback in the NFL last year.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say number 2 corner, I mean guys that cover not the number 1 receiver.
Sure.
He was as good as anyone, honestly. Moving everywhere, he shadowed guys. What's important to note about Newman is that when Rhodes was shadowing guys, so he was moving all around the formation, Newman was doing that as well in order to allow for Rhodes to move from the right side to the left side, and even sometimes in the slot. I think he lined up in the slot against Odell Beckham a couple of times. So just to have that versatility with your outside guys, where you can move them everywhere, where they're not just comfortable on one side of the field, and you get kind of stuck in a Tampa 2 defense that Leslie Frazier ran, where you just have your right cornerback and your left cornerback, and you expect him to take out one side of the field. The ability to have Rhodes move from the left to the right side, to the slot, to the inside, whatever, and have Newman be able to mimic that in accordance with how he's aligned, that's big for me. And Trey Waynes is obviously great depth in the outside as well.
Yeah, for
sure. Not to change subjects here, I'm kind of going along the same route here, but how nice is it to be talking about guys like Xavier Rhodes and Terrence Newman and Trey Waynes rather than Brian Kelly, Chris Dishman? It's just so nice that this team is focused on cornerbacks a little bit and brought in some talent there. Exactly.
Yeah.
AJ Jefferson. Remember when AJ Jefferson was the number 1 cornerback and he got absolutely torched by Josh Gordon?
I was excited for him, and look at what he turned out to be.
It's really, especially in the pass-happy league now, it's really nice that the Vikings were able to figure out the cornerback position when they did.
And even after losing Captain Munnerlyn.
Yeah, absolutely. Imagine if he was on this depth chart. If Munnerlyn was on this depth chart, I think that we'd have to go 10s all around, right? Yeah. Would you guys upgrade? Because I'm already on 10s both ways. I think that the question mark for most of you guys was on Mackenzie Alexander in that slot spot.
Exactly.
If you alleviate that issue, keeping Munnerlyn, man, that's like a 5-sum of cornerbacks.
You really did have 10 guys.
If they were able to return everybody they had last year, I think it would be incredible.
Yeah.
And I guess that's the one reason that gives me cause for concern is that Munnerlyn left and they didn't really replace him with anybody. It can definitely be argued that they replaced him a year early by selecting Mac.
Right.
And that's fair. And I have high hopes for Trey Roberson.
I was just going to say, we haven't even talked about Jabari Price or Trey Roberson. I feel like those guys are solid, So
I think Roberson's going to make the 53. I really do.
I thought he was going to last year. I remember Brett. I had a bet going on with Brett. I actually thought the emergence of Roberson meant that Newman would be cut because of it. And obviously, terribly.
It's not the worst take ever. I don't mind it. He played really, really well at training camp last year. I mean, he earned the right to come back and compete for a real 53 spot, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I thought he did last year, and he was just a victim of the numbers game, really.
Yeah.
Obviously, I was terribly, terribly mistaken on the impact Newman would have. But even, it's not that I thought Newman was going to be terrible. I just thought that the age was going to work against him if he was sticking around. And if his regression starts to show up in training camp, which eventually a guy like Terrence Newman has to regress, right? Not saying that it's going to happen this year, but eventually that's going to happen. And I really think Roberson is a name to watch because he was fantastic in the preseason last year.
I don't get to be right very often against Adam in these things, so I kind of rubbed that one in Adam's face. And I mean, to be fair, it was a super hot take that he was making. Like that was a pretty.
I don't know if that is that hot, honestly, Warwas. I think that was a pretty good take. Like, I mean, it was bold. Obviously, it wasn't like you weren't
the same thing, right? Hot and bold. I mean,
I really
I associate the word hot with like ridiculous.
It's a step above bold. It's like
bold is like saying something that could happen that just has very low odds. Right. Hot has it's like something that it's feasible, I guess, but Vegas would give it like plus 10,000, something like that.
When the whole thing started was actually the very moment they selected Mac Alexander last May, and
over Von Bell.
That's when Brett and I started talking about it because I made a comment of, well, Terrence Newman's on notice, and I didn't think it was that outlandish. And then you have a guy like Trey Roberson come along in Mankato and start playing like that. Well, I was pretty convinced that Newman was really on the bubble.
I can't remember exactly why I thought it was outlandish, and we need to move on. But I think it was because, one, Newman was Zimmer's guy, so I did not see any scenario where Zimmer was letting Newman go off of that team. And two, I think there were some contract details. I think that maybe I was weighing into that equation. That if they let him go, they were going to lose some guaranteed money or something like that. I mean, I don't have his contract details in front of me right now, but I think I was looking at all of that stuff as well. So
the point being, even with losing Captain Wonderland, this is still a very talented.
Great unit here.
Good bottom line.
As Sean said, that is a very refreshing thing after living my first.
For sure. And let's just hope that Spielman can do the same thing with the offensive line, because I feel like the secondary and the offensive line have been the two things that we've been trying to get straightened out in Minnesota for a long time, and I feel like we got one, and now we just need to get the other one. So I'm not trying to open up that can of worms. So, but anyway, all right. So a unit that's not nearly as good as the cornerbacks is strong safety. What was our grade here? It was not a good one. It was our worst overall grade, 6.57, and our worst depth grade, 5.14. Read the depth chart for you real quick. Andrew Sendejo, Jerron Curse, and Jack Tacho. I don't know. They're bad overall.
I think we should group this one.
Yeah,
this is one that we should.
Okay, that's fine.
I don't like strong and free. I like because I think that especially.
So free safety was not good either outside of Harrison Smith. So it was basically Harrison Smith. Let's do this. Let's say 1 Harrison Smith, 2 Andrew Sendejo, and then all the other guys that I'm not sure any of us have a whole lot of faith in. And I think that was reflected in our grades for both position. The overall grade for free safety was 9.71. Obviously, that's the Harrison Smith effect. He's probably, I'll just say it, he's the best safety in the NFL. I feel fine saying that. So, I mean, I think, outside of him, there's just a ton of question marks. That was one of the biggest glaring holes going into the offseason. I think we did a lot to address some of our other holes, but I think that's still one big glaring hole in this defense is the safety spot next to Harrison Smith and behind Harrison Smith and Anderson Sendejo. So, any other thoughts on that?
I think Anderson Sendejo is underrated.
Yeah, no, I know, and I feel like I'm being a little mean to Sendejo, but he's a solid number 2. He's not going to.
I think he looked pretty good last year.
Yeah, he did look good. Yeah, he was impressive last year because we were all beating him up before last year too, and I think he shut some people up. So I guess I shouldn't disrespect him too much.
I was reading an article that John wrote that hasn't posted as of this recording, but might post before we post this video. So check out Vikings Territory for Sean's latest Andrew Sendejo take. But I liked what he said, that Sendejo has improved every season.
Let him say it.
And now I'm going to let him talk about that.
Sean, tell us about your article that's coming out. Give us a little preview.
Well, Brett, I felt the same way you did about Andrew Sendejo going into writing this article, because honestly, I wasn't a huge fan of the guy. He always seems to never, Adam, you might get mad at me for saying this, but he doesn't seem to wrap up. He takes bad angles at times. And I just was not very enthusiastic about the guy in general. But after doing a little digging and checking out some stats, my mind has been altered. I've changed my mind on the guy and read the article to find out more.
So can you give us a hint of what changed your mind? One thing? Was there one thing that changed your mind? Or
deep balls. He does not give up the big play.
Okay. Well, that's important for that spot. So, yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. We'll definitely. I don't know, BJ, maybe link it in the show article or something like that, and we'll throw it in the show notes or something. Anyone else want to say anything about safety before we wrap this thing up? No? Need some work?
Harrison Smith is really, really good.
The GOAT.
And he can, whoever he makes whoever he's playing opposite of a lot better as well. I think that should, I think that's important, that you can even throw out J-Ron Curse out there with him kind of, if you drop Harrison Smith in zone coverage and have J-Ron Curse play that inside the box safety role, I think that you still feel comfortable. The real question mark is if beyond Sendejo can anybody, like Sean just noted, can anybody play safe, like what the term means, and not allowing the big play to go on behind them, because that's the most important part of the safety role. I don't trust anyone other than Sendejo and Smith to do that right now, just because Harris is too small. J-Ron Curse over pursues and doesn't really know where he is sometimes. Antoine Exum is I think he takes too many chances, so there's just too many question marks. And then Jack Tocho, who's probably the smartest one of all of them, and Harrison Smith, who's right up there with him in terms of defensive intelligence, just might not have the athleticism to be good enough out there. But I think that there's a lot of good question marks, like things that will be answered that will kind of reflect well on as a whole as we figure out what goes down over the course of this summer.
So let's say that what we talked about in the last bit about cornerback comes to fruition, and we have some pleasant surprises, and Roberson is on there, and Marcus Sherrills continues to make the roster. And a lot of fans have asked this for a number of years now. Is Terrence Newman, who we saw at safety at the end of last year, a viable option if football intelligence is a main criteria of yours?
I would say yes, for sure. You see a lot of safeties over at the end of their career use their savvy to extend their career by moving to safety. I mean, the most obvious example of that is Charles Woodson, obviously. You see it happening with Darrelle Revis right now. A lot of teams talking to him about his consideration on whether or not he'd be willing to play safety if they signed him, just because when you have that high football IQ, especially in terms of defensive secondary, you can move around back there and kind of alleviate some of the concerns that age, presents, I guess.
Yeah.
So I do think that Newman's a viable option, especially if free safety, like the zone coverage schemes, which allow Harrison Smith to do everything that he does so well inside the box.
That's a good point, Adam. I like that. Thank you.
I don't see it happening, for the record, but
why not?
I don't either.
He's a really old dog to teach that new trick to. But
I feel like it's such a cliche thing that we always say during the interviews.
With Woodson doing it at 38, though?
I understand, but name another one.
It's you're proving your point by me having to think about it. Even if I do think of one.
That's hard to be put on the spotlight.
How about Tremont Williams? Tremont Williams did it as well.
Successfully, though?
He got another year out of his career in Cleveland.
Okay, in Cleveland.
Do you consider it successful? I don't know. I mean, I'm talking about.
No, I know. That's
Champ Bailey. Didn't Champ Bailey do it? Oh, no, what? Champ Bailey got cut. He transferred to safety when he was in New Orleans. So, you're probably on something with this. By trying to think of one, I'm proving your point that it's not.
Up, and now I'm not purposely trying to shoot it down, but I do have my doubts. I think
way to go, Adam. Get everybody riled up. Terrence Newman to safety, but he's not going to safety. I was just kidding.
Well, I've seen us ask that question a million times on our
Antrell Roll. There's a good one. He did it pretty well. Moved from corner.
BJ's going to be up the next.
Playing safety in Chicago. That's not bad.
BJ's going to be up the next 6 hours messaging you with all these different guys that have done it. So.
Good. I'll turn my notifications off.
All right. Look, we're gonna move on. We did special teams, but we're not going to do special teams. We provided grades for special teams, but no one wants to.
I'll link that in the article as well. You can see the grades that we did.
I mean, basically summarizing it, we all like the punt returners, and then there's question marks everywhere else, basically, except maybe long snapper.
Let's check in on the kick returner competition a number of times over the next.
Kick returner, we're not. Definitely punter, we're not. God, I know we don't like to talk about punter, but.
I love talking about punters.
That's looking
punter
rough.
is such a fun position to me.
Yeah, that's looking rough though. So,
Taylor Semank.
Huh?
I was just saying I don't know who the Taylor Semank guy is.
I don't know either of those guys if I'm being honest.
Quigley, I knew who Quigley was, but I've never heard of Semank before.
I've heard of them, but I couldn't tell you anything about them. So that's going to pretty much do it. Adam, why do you hate this team so much? You had the lowest overall grade and the lowest depth. The overall depth, your average depth grade that you gave out was 5.5.
Okay. I am the oldest member of the Vikings territory team, and it is a mathematical proven fact that the more, or at least I think I am. How old are you, Sean?
30.
Okay, I'm the oldest member of the Vikings territory team, and it's mathematical. There's a graph out there somewhere, I think it's in the Bible, that shows that your level of cynicism goes way up the older you get if you're a Vikings fan.
Yeah. That's
Or in life.
Because mine's pretty much off the charts, and mine's pretty much off. My cynicism is pretty much off the charts, and I'm only 30, so I can't imagine what yours is at 50. You look pretty damn good for 52, by the way. It's impressive, man. For the record, the highest overall grade was Austin, of course. I mean, is anyone surprised? Mr. Optimistic has the highest grade. Highest overall depth was BJ, so BJ loves the depth on this team.
I do.
So anyway, guys, that's going to do it. Thank you for watching. We had another long one, but hopefully you found it interesting. If you did find it interesting, like, subscribe, and give us a share. Share us with your friends and family. We'd really appreciate that. Shout out to the China guys. We got some viewers in China. They were leaving comments. By the way, if you leave a comment, we'll always respond to your comment, one of the guys here at the VT team. So make sure to drop us a line. And check us out at VikingsTerritory.com. Hit up that Kentrell Brothers story from BJ. You can search for that. We're going to have the Andrew Sandejo thing coming from Sean, and we're going to have some great content coming up too. So thanks, guys. Have a good night. Real quick, do you think people are really going to think we let Sam go? Should we clarify that, or you think it was a little too serious? Or
we were laughing and joking. If they did take us seriously, then when Sam pops up in the next episode, that'll be clarified.
Yeah, we can have him explain himself and issue a public apology.
Okay.
I'm the HR department, so I think that he's probably
you're our HR department.
I coordinate the content around here, so
We're screwed if you're the
I would say
HR
no.
department.
No, there is a running joke that nobody else knows about except for me. I've inserted it into like 5 articles over the last 5 years. But there is a Janice that works in HR at Vikings territory.
There is?
I'm pretty sure if you search Janice or like works in HR, you'll find a number of articles where I've slid that in.
I don't even think I've noticed that, Adam.
Of course, you don't read anything I write.
That's true. Well, you also don't write anymore, so.